Okay, well, I might make a start now. So welcome everyone. There are still a few latecomers coming in, but I'll just start my introduction. So welcome to the SWIFT 2020 progress meeting and the keynote talks that we have arranged for this meeting. For those who are visitors to SWIFT, this is our annual meeting. We are expecting to be in Senegal for this meeting at a nice hotel on the beach. And now we're sitting in our rooms on Zoom, but hopefully we have the same energy and the same enthusiasm that we would have if we were together. We're spending a month, the whole month of June, with intermittent meetings, and this is the first week of those meetings. So we're very grateful to inspire us and to give us the benefit of their experience and their ideas. Three short talks. We've invited speakers from partner programs of SWIFT. SWIFT, I think, is the effect and legacy of SWIFT will depend very much on strong partnerships. So we've invited colleagues from 3 areas and 3 people with different reflections on the work or the kind of work which SWIFT is doing. So we have about 15 minutes for each speaker. So I will share this. Please, I encourage people to put questions or comments into the chat. You can do that as we go along, and I will try to field those. There's also a question and answer button, so you can use that. So in between the talks, I will try to bring some of those comments in if we have enough time, and I may hold some comments off till the end if I think that's appropriate, just to make sure that we do get to hear our speakers in full. So without further ado, we're going to use the same batting order that we have on the web page. So we'll start with Dr. Issa Ouedraogo, who's a scientist from CGIAR, working on the CCAFS program. So I met Issa, in fact, at the SWIFT kickoff meeting, and he's coordinated the CINSERE project based in Dakar in Senegal. And I think many of us at the kickoff meeting saw some of the excellent work which CINSERE is doing. And I think it's been an inspiration to us throughout the SWIFT project. So Issa is now going to talk to us about some of that work. So I'll hand over to you now, Issa, if you'd like to share your screen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parker. Thank you for this opportunity. Let me share my screen right now. Is it okay? Do you see it?
That's good, yes. It's not in display, it's in...
Okay, let me see how to...
You can go full screen if you wish.
Yes. Is that okay now?
Yeah. There, that's full screen, that's good.
Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present the lesson learned and the experience from CINSERE so far, a project that started in 2016. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. CINSERE stands for Climate Information Services for Increased Resilience and Productivity in Senegal. I will go quickly on the outline. I will present the background of the project, the approach that we used, the achievements so far, and some concluding remarks. Well, climate change affects both natural and human systems in sub-Saharan Africa. Climate change is translated in this area by warming trends, frequent occurrence of extreme heat events, increasing aridity, change in rainfall pattern, sea level rise, etc. And this has direct impact on agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa, which we know is largely dominated by rain-fed agricultural system. And we also know that a large proportion of the population in sub-Saharan Africa depends on these rain-fed actuarial systems. Therefore, the tests, validation and implementation of some adaptation and mitigation measures to climate change has become paramount. To this end, the CGI research program on climate change, agriculture, and food security, in collaboration with the Senegalese Met Service, ANACIM, has piloted in 2011 the use of weather and climate information services in some remote village in Senegal. And this experience yielded very positive outcome. In view of this success, the United States Agency for International Development granted CCAF and ANACIM to take WCIS to scale under the CINSERE project. And as you see, CINSERE, in fact, the objective, the goal of the project is to increase the access to and use of weather and climate information services to generate better decision-making in the face of climate change and climate variability. The project has two specific objectives. The first is to build the national level capacity in delivering WCIS. And the second is to develop some business model so that the delivery of weather and climate information system could be sustained. Yes, we have developed a very complex approach called WCIS system with 6 main components. The first component is the WCIS generation. This has to do with the need assessment in terms of WCIS with the potential users, and also the production of the WCIS. The second is the WCIS transfer, and this has to do with the dissemination platform channel that we have to develop to take WCIS to the users. The WCIS translation, and this has to do with the capacity building of the users and next users to really understand and effectively use climate, weather and climate information services. The WCIS use like a close-up monitoring, in fact, assistance of users so that we can ensure that we are using the information effectively. The WCIS evaluation, there are two types. The evaluation of the type of decision that has been taken so far, and the evaluation of the impacts of the use of WCIS. And finally, the WCIS sustainability. This has to do with the identification, the testing, and the implementation of business model using public-private partnership system. I will take you step by step so that you can understand the approach that we have used for each component and the achievement so far. For the WCIS generations, we started in 2016 by some stakeholder consultation with farmers, with pastoralists, and also with fishing communities to identify the type of WCIS that they need to inform the decision making. And also ANACIM, the National Met Services, based on the identified WCIS, they have started using the climate data that are available to their end to produce the needed information. So far, in the agricultural sector, out of 16 requested WCIS, 11 have been produced. And if in the fishing sector, out of 6 requested, 5 have been produced and communicated so far. For the WCIS transfer, this has to do with the communication channel so that we can ensure that potential user gets information at the right time because it's perishable information. So with ANACIM, we have developed many communication platforms and channels using like the network, the mobile network operator like SMS, and also with voice voice call in local languages. We are working with the community radio. Actually, we have 120 community radios in Senegal. We are also using internet, like for mailing, some platforms, some website, and also TV. So far, more than 500,000 farmers and fishers have direct access to WCIS. We haven't been so, in fact, successful in estimating the number of people who are getting information through the community radio, but it's on the way. For the WCIS transfer, we have, in fact, built two small components. The first, two approaches. The first is the training of users. Every year, we train farmers, fishermen, so that they can understand and effectively use weather and climate information services. And we have developed some training manuals so that the training can be improved. We have also created what we call a multidisciplinary working group. And the multidisciplinary working group is a very important entity that helps boost the uptake of weather and climate information services at the district level. They are operating at the district level. And out of 45 districts in Senegal, we have created 32 multidisciplinary working groups in 32 districts in Senegal. And more than 200 farmers and fishermen are capacitated, are trained, directly trained to understand and effectively use weather and climate information services. For the WCIS use, the WCIS use, we have developed some participatory approach to closely work with the users to make sure that they are using it correctly. In the agricultural sector, we have developed some field demonstration, and we are monitoring those who are selected for the field demonstration very closely. And we have also been using the climate smart agriculture approaches to really, in fact, help the users to be able to use the information. In the fishing sector, we always organize, of course, some events with the fishermen to, in fact, to raise the awareness on the usability and utility of weather and climate information services. So far, 82% of the farmers who have access to WCIS are using it to inform their decision making. And in the fishing sector, it's about 90%. The WCIS evaluation, we have two types of evaluation. The first is the evaluation of the decision being taken. And also the second, the evaluation of the impact. For the type of use, as you can see in the figures, during the onset of the rainy season, farmers use available WCIS to decide on the sowing dates, to decide on what type of crop variety to be used, what type of crop to be used, what type of cropland and crop size to be used. During the middle of the rainy season, toward the offset of the season, they use the information to decide on the date to spread fertilizer or manure, the weeding dates, the harvesting date, etc., etc. For the fishing area, once they receive a warning, they can decide whether it's worth or not going for fishing. We also tried to understand the performance in terms of dissemination channel, and it happened that among people who are not educated, they really need the voice messages because this is direct and into their local languages. But for people who are educated, they like the SMS because with the SMS, they can share it to other people and they can store it for further use. So far, 90% of farmers who use WCIS are very confident that it has been useful for them. And for the fishing area, it's about 95%. The evaluation of the impacts, the team has used a very strong, robust economic methodology to evaluate the use of WCIS. And so far, the results show that WCIS has a very positive and significant effect on agricultural income. It has a positive and significant impact in yield, and it has a positive and significant impact on the national economy, both for agriculture, for fishing. The last component is the WCIS sustainability. You know, since 2016, the cost of WCIS production, dissemination, and training have been borne by the CINSERE project. And for us to sustain the system, to withstand without any support, external support, we have tried to identify some business model, and this is one of the business models. For this business model, the insurance company, agricultural insurance company, is now trying to bundle WCIS with the package that they are giving to farmers. So they will integrate the cost of production and dissemination in the premium. The agricultural input providers and advisory providers also integrate and try to bundle WCIS into the package that they give to different users. And for that, ANASIM has to produce some very site-specific weather and climate information services so that the business can be viable. We have produced some resources, some documents that you can see here, and so many papers are on the way. As a concluding remark, we have to note that WCIS has become an important agricultural and fishery input in Senegal, and there is a high demand for site-specific WCIS. And WCIS is economically beneficial for agriculture and fisheries. And the private sectors are more and more engaging in the WCIS business model. And we think that this has been a very successful experience, and it needs to be in fact, replicated in some other countries. But we know that it requires some financial support from the different governments and also from donors. I want to thank SWIFT for giving us this opportunity to present our work, to thank also USAID for providing the necessary resources for this project, to thank ANASIM for the very productive collaboration that we have since 2016. And I thank my colleague based in Dakar here and those who are based in Bamako. They have been very, very good, very, very supportive in this project. Thank you very much. I hope I haven't, I am in time, hopefully. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So thank you, Issa. That's excellent. Unfortunately, we can't hear applause, but I'm sure people are applauding and clapping in their different offices for a very inspiring talk, and it's extremely impressive what you're achieving.
Thank you.
Certainly, as I said in the introduction, we were very inspired to see the work you're doing several years ago, and clearly you've moved this forward since then, and the evaluation is particularly impressive. There was one question that I can pass on. Emma, if you want to prepare yourself psychologically for starting, there was one question which comes from Marcelin Tonya Mahop. Is it possible to share any insights into how you came up with the 500,000 number of farmers and fishers who have access? Is that number of people that part of the plan, or is that something you aim to develop and increase in future?
Okay. Can I reply right now?
Go ahead, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, in fact, as I said, we have developed some communication channels, and it's very easier to monitor those who are getting information from the platform that we have developed. Like for the SMS system, we are working with different startups, and they have built a database, and we are following the number of people getting information through this platform every quarter. For the voice system, also, we have a database that we monitor all the time. But as I said during my presentation, we haven't been, in fact, able to assess the number of people getting information from the radio. And I'm sure that if we were able to use a sound scientific approach to assess the number of people getting information from radio, I'm sure that we will reach more than 2 to 3 million people in Senegal. But the 500 people, they are people whose phone number are stored in our database.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very, very clear answer. So in the interest of time, let's move on. We may have more questions if people put them in the chat, and I can come to those later if we have time. But now we'll move to our next speaker, who's Emma Mwangi. So Emma is a friend to many of us in Swift. She started on the Swift project at the beginning of Swift, came to the kickoff meeting, and we were sorry to lose her, but she moved to a very good promotion, a very good position, still with the Kenya Met Department, but she's been seconded to the Kenya Red Cross Society. Emma, if you're ready, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Doug. I hope everyone can hear me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Swift, for this opportunity to present the work we've been doing under ForPAc in Kenya. And I'll particularly talk around the work we've been doing with drought and flood risk management in Kenya and what lessons we've learned from this. And I'll start by looking at a brief introduction of the project, then things we've done around forecast development, and finally, how we've engaged stakeholders. So starting off with what ForPAc stands for. So it stands for Towards Focus-Based Preparedness Action Project, which has been running since 2017. I joined it midway, and it's ending in 2020, and it's brought together a number of institutions from the UK as well as from Kenya. So you can see some of those from the UK, including University of Sussex, Oxford, the Met Office. And in Kenya, we have Kenya Red Cross Meteorological Department, the National Drought Management Authority, as well as ICPAC, just to cater for the scaling up aspect in the project. So ForPAc has two very interconnected aims, and one of it was improve forecast information, not just for one lead time, but over seamless lead times from seasonal all the way to shorter lead times. And this was going to take place using co-production of decision-relevant products. You know, the products out there, but are they relevant to the users? Then once that was done, the next aim was to improve the use of this forecast in existing flood and drought early warning system. And this was going to use an approach that some of us may have heard of, called the focus-based action approach, which I'll briefly talk about next. So ForPAc has been working with a few case studies, looking at Kitui for the drought work and Nairobi for urban flooding, as well as Nzoia for the riverine flooding. So then moving forward, I know some of us could have heard about the focus-based action approach, but just to give a highlight is that over the years, we've started seeing an increase in the frequency of extreme events, especially within Africa. And as this happens, we are seeing a lot of money going into response, a lot of money going into recovery aspect of these disasters. And this has been because of this aspect that once we get information of a hazard going to occur, a lot of the times not a lot of finances and actions are put in place, and we end up having to respond to a very big number of people who are in need of help after the disaster. But what FBA is premiering and advocating for is that once we have that information of a hazardous event, can we start putting some finances into it, so that in the end we use less of our resources towards helping people. And this is made possible by especially the climate science developments that we've seen over the years. And in the recent past, there has been substantial investment in these anticipatory approaches, be it called focus-based financing, focus-based approach, early warning, early action. And also there's consensus that it works with a 1 to 9 return on investment. If you actually, then you're saving quite some amount of money. That being said, then I'll look at what we've done within ForPAc. And one of the things we did under focus development was just try and understand further the predictability of the seasons in Kenya, the March to April season and the October to December season in Kenya. And what we see in this graphic is that with the brown color is that for the March, April, May, you're only able to predict it just a month before the season. But with the October, November, December, you can predict it very well with a lot of brown color showing a lot of agreement between the forecast and the observed information, showing that you can actually predict that as early as July, giving people a longer window of implementing early action or focus-based action. And what that means is that we have a really sweet spot for predictability within the October-November rains, with a very long window of implementing early action. And with that, we can also issue bolder probabilities. We can as well say higher than what we see now, 45 or 35% probabilities. But all is not lost for the March to April, May, whose predictability is quite low. We can predict within the season, so 1 to 3 weeks ahead within the season. We can predict it quite well, showing, you can see the brown color showing all the way from 3 weeks that there is a good agreement between the forecast and the observation, and that improves within the second and with 1 week to the season. And this is because of improved predictability within the season, because of some teleconnections. And this was the case for those who are in Kenya, implementing projects in Kenya. You saw the very heavy rains within the 2018 March, April, May rains. And this was a scenario that, yes, because of the MJO, then the seasonal predictability, the in-season predictability was quite high. And some of this work on the sub-seasonal, so that gap between the monthly and the weekly forecast is being merged by an S2S pilot, which is being implemented under WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, from November last year to October 2021. And one of the ways that we've been working with SWIFT is producing this 4 weekly forecast, and this was provided to some stakeholders through the March, April, May 2020 season, and I'll discuss further a little bit about that. Then for the forecast development, just looking at how can the operational forecast be improved over seamless timescales. What the project has done is looking at how good are the models out there, the models from Europe, from the US, be it from Africa, how good are they? And what the project has done is using the best models, trying to combine those using a methodology we are calling optimized forecast to produce a better probabilistic forecast. And that's a contribution towards operational forecasting, especially within ICPAC, the IGAD Climate Prediction Center, helping them be able to select which are the models that we can put in the objective forecasting. So I'll go over next to the stakeholder engagement under the improving the use of forecast, especially in flood and drought early warning systems. And I'll start with a flood case study in Nairobi. And as you all know, especially people living in Nairobi, is that one of the things we don't have is an existing flood early warning system in the city. And one of the early things that the ForPAc project sought to understand is what are the historical impacts? Where do we experience impacts within Nairobi? And we have this very detailed impact database looking at what are the various impacts where they experienced. Then we also used a high resolution flood model just to try and simulate flooding in Nairobi for the past very extreme events. And this model was called the 3DI model, and it was able to really very well capture the flood extent historically within Nairobi. And combining those two, then one of the things we've been able to do for Nairobi is have confirmed flood hotspots, which we've shared with flood managers within Nairobi so that they know which are the areas that are at risk within Nairobi. And further work will be carried on with the Kenya Red Cross. So creating some scenarios for different thresholds. For example, if we say 50 millimeters in 24 hours, which are the areas from the model that we're seeing would be flooding, and this will be shared with Kenya Red Cross so that they can overlay that with risk information and be able to target which are the areas that need to be prioritized in case of a flood. Then for the forecast information within the Nairobi case study, so one of the things we were able to do through the season last year, the October to December season last year, is share forecast information, the optimized forecast information with the stakeholders. And not only did we give the forecast, it's also giving them the skill information. In the past couple of years, how many times has that system been right? How many times has it missed? For them to make conscious decisions around, can we implement early actions? And if we are implementing early actions, how many times will we be acting in vain? How many times will we make a hit? And one of the things we're happy to say is that within that period, the communities and county government stakeholders were able to intensify preparedness within Nairobi. So we had people clearing the drains, coordination meetings between stakeholders, as well as a lot of awareness creation within the communities. Then this year through the March to May 2020, in collaboration with the SWIFT project, we've been able to offer seamless sub-seasonal forecast. So looking at the next 4 weeks ahead, what is expected, and stakeholders have been able to use this to heighten preparedness actions within Nairobi. Then looking at drought risk management, so Kenya has a national authority that is in charge of drought risk management and was created under the Ending Drought Emergencies policy, and it operates within 23 ASAL counties. But one of the things we've seen is that the system is quite reactive. It's not a proactive system. But then one of the initial things we did with the people at the county level was just try to understand what exactly do they do? How is their process? Where does climate information come in? And if it's not coming into the system, what are the challenges? And the graphic that you see here shows at the top the time of the year, the rain season, farming activities, but the next two rows indicate the activities within the drought management system. Then lower you have where the seasonal forecasts are issued. And what we see is that around media, when they're doing a lot of the activities, there is no forecast to inform that. And right at the bottom is now the intervention that ForPAc decided to bring into the drought early warning system. It's providing the seasonal forecast with monthly updates for the long rains. Then as of July, giving a long lead O&D forecast that then is updated throughout the season with monthly, the optimized seasonal and the monthly forecast, yeah? And as I've said, one of the things is that this system does not integrate climate information. And one of the things is that mismatch between the timing of activities and when climate information is issued. The other thing is that we the meteorologists provide forecast information of rainfall. But what this system uses is the standardized precipitation index as well as vegetation condition index. So there's also that mismatch with the metrics that's provided and what's used in the system. So the solution was to co-develop a new suite of products, which we piloted again through the October-November 2019 in a seamless fashion. And what I show next is part of the information that was provided in September. So this information not only gave the usual above normal, below normal classification, but also looked at a metrics that's quite used within the system. So the standardized precipitation index that's used to trigger drought action. Then additionally as well, just like in Nairobi, we provided skill information just to guide people around. If you act upon a certain probability threshold, how many times are you right? How many times are you wrong? And also we introduced some new products like soil moisture, just to guide the end of season yield expectations. What's the end of the season yield? And once these products were provided, the other thing that the stakeholders got involved in is deciding what are the actions that they would carry out with this focus. So being that by September, they were already in alarm phase of drought, and this was showing that the forecast was going to be good. What are the kind of actions that they would take? And you can see there's a lot of sensitization, a lot of activities around water conservation, soil conservation activities. And in the end, the provision of this information, together with what they were getting from KMD, actually guided them to plant more maize than is usually planted in such an ASAL area. Then vaccination of livestock against diseases that come when we have an above average season, some sensitization, and just getting a lot of enhanced water harvesting. And just looking back at one of the stakeholders, what they're saying about the sustainability of this information and the engagement. One of the things they're telling us is that the engagement has improved the capacity of people to interpret forecast and also be able to channel that further down to the stakeholders in the community. Then they're saying these prototype products would really add value if they're integrated in KMD, and they wanted to see KMD mainstream this in their regular updates. So what lessons have we learned so far is that there's need for that improved link between focus producers and users, not only to provide information that's relevant for decision making, but that matches the timing with their decision making. Then again, capacity building for people to be able to interpret information and integrate it in decision making. There needs to be an approach for feedback. How do we feedback if the information is working or not working? Then as well, skill information for them to be able to support decision making, as well as a lot of capacity building for people to be able to interpret that. Then looking at operationalization, what are we looking at integrating all this into existing systems as well as existing forecasting systems. We've had engagements early this year with the two critical institutions for drought, KMD, as well as the National Drought Management Authority. And one of the things the National Management Authority is saying, yes, we need to integrate these products in our early warning system, and we need a lot of capacity building for interpretation of this information. Then we are also looking at having a high-level meeting where there is ownership. How do we take this forward within the mandated institutions? Then capacity building is definitely needed, both at the production and user level. And we hope to extend this within a bigger framework within the Kenya Red Cross Society that's designing early action protocols there. So designing a system where people can act earlier on flood forecast and also drought forecast. As well as one of the things we've been happy about is engagement with SWIFT, and we are hoping that this will be carried forward within SWIFT, so they'll continue working and providing the subseasonal information to the flood and drought case studies within ForPAc. But that is not all. There is a bigger picture that needs to happen towards sustainability. And one of the things is just that coordinated engagement between agencies, disaster management agencies and focused production agencies. But more important
could I ask you to just bring it? Are you near the conclusion?
Yes, this is the last one.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, sorry.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the institutional and coordination, the overall overarching policy environment to support anticipatory action, as well as money. So people were saying that there's no financing for early action. So looking as well into that, as well as evidence that FBA works. Capacity building is definitely needed. And this is one of the things, the last one that we have seen also within SWIFT is access of the national Met services to better focus models, be it from the UK or from the US. So thank you very much. I've finished, Douglas. Over to you, Douglas.
Doug, I think you need to take yourself off mute there.
Ha, yes. So thank you, Emma. That's excellent. And it's great to see the progress which is ForPAc is making. And it's great that we're associated with you and that you personally are still collaborating with SWIFT. The chat is quite busy with questions and the question and answer. We probably don't have time now to do those live, but can I suggest that the speakers and others can engage with those directly on chat? I think we're all getting used to being able to watch a presentation and you know, do some other things online at the same time, and you know, we can split our brains into two halves in this world of online Zoom meetings. So I think if I move to our final presentation now, so it's wonderful to have Jim Wilson with us. He's calling in from the US. I think it's about 7:30 in the morning in the US now. So I won't read Jim's entire bio. He's a senior scientist emeritus at NCAR, the National Center for Atmospheric Research in the US, and he's lead researcher on the Highway project. And Highway's been a partner project with SWIFT since the SWIFT proposal, in fact. So Jim is the go-to person on nowcasting, I think, worldwide. If you think of nowcasting, he's the first name that comes to your mind. He's done a remarkable amount to develop nowcasting everywhere, and particularly in recent years working around the world: Australia, Brazil, Turkey, Africa, and China. So it's really wonderful to have Jim to speak to us, and I won't take any more of Jim's time, and I'll hand over to you to present now.
Okay. So actually Rita Roberts is the one who was asked to do this, so you're stuck with me because she was unable to do it now. So we always like this, you know, we're proud of where we stay, so we always throw up a picture of where Boulder is and our place. But anyways, highway. You know, this is very strange, not being able to see anybody. I can't tell if anybody's looking or what. Anyways, the project is funded by the UK Department of International Development, and it's run by the WMO. It's a 3-year project, which basically is just about up. But the whole issue is we need more weather observations. This is about Lake Victoria Basin. This is about nowcasting. And we need to reduce the loss of poverty. There's a tremendous amount of life lost. So severe weather warnings is something that really needs to be developed. And we need to increase the capacity of the forecasters being able to make these warnings. So what I'm going to mainly talk about is highway program supported field campaign for Lake Victoria Basin that ran most of last year. So here's Lake Victoria, big lake. There's like 150,000 fishermen. I've seen the number even 200,000, but the tragic thing is 3,000 to 5,000 die per year, it's estimated, in their little fishing boats. There's storms that come up over this lake swamped these boats, and the results in lots of death. There are storms over this lake. 95% of the days there's thunderstorms during the year. You can see this, Lake Victoria's in this area here, where all this, one of the heaviest lightning places in the world. Just to give you one idea, this is the frequency of lightning here over in the left. This is, the storms develop at late night, and around sunrise they're at max, and you can see a tremendous amount of lightning over the lake. But during the day they die out, and on the right here you can see there's almost no lightning around sunset. The reason? Land and lake breezes. They are what really control the weather. And so for the field campaign, what we want to do is, of course, get a lot of observations so that we could increase our knowledge of storm evolution. And of course, this knowledge was to be used to develop better forecast models and just get the forecasters to really understand how to do nowcasting for this lake. Verification of models was one of the ideas too. We needed to know really what kind of instrumentation do you really need to produce an early warning system. So this is the data we were able to put together. Lightning data from Earth networks. Of course, the satellite data was there. We had service stations, not many, and we were able to add some. Big item was dual polarization radar, and we're going to talk more about that. But that was absolutely critical. Also, we were able to get a couple upper air stations going, and then the AMDAR reports from the airplanes. Okay, so this image gives you an idea of what instrumentation we had. All these little dots and triangles are surface stations. And you see, really, they're not that many. They're all in one area. The big item is the radar at Mwanza, which is absolutely excellent radar. Right near the end of the year, radar was put in Entebbe, and then further off in Nairobi, not in Nairobi, over here there's another station, a little too far away for the lake. And here are the two sounding stations that got implemented in Nairobi and Lodwar. Unfortunately, we don't have one right near the lake. Okay, I mentioned the radar data. These are polarimetric radars, top of the line, particularly here at Mwanza. This one just got installed. And you can see we really would like to have another one over here in Kenya to cover more of this part of the lake. Okay, so as I mentioned, during the year, soundings got installed in Nairobi and Lodwar. And that was really kind of exciting events for them. And it produced some very nice soundings. Okay, this is the data. This is the data that we had to work with. We had the model from the Met Office, the unified model. We had the radar reflectivity data showing over in this image. We had satellite data showing in this image, and lightning data on here in the lower right, and service stations and radio sons that I mentioned. So that was the data set we had. It's interesting if you actually look at the radar and the lightning, they vary very nicely. And they actually are our prime data sets with the sounding. Now, the nice thing is that a field catalog was put together. We put together this field catalog that took all the data that was collected and stored it in one place. And it's easy to get to through, here's the address. And so you can see all the data. I'm going to talk a little bit about the radar data. Mwanza's down here. This is the lake, the white outline of the lake. Mwanza's down here, south end of the lake. And I'm showing radar reflectivity images, and you can see these storms up through here, way out in range. And it agrees very nicely with the lightning at the same time. You see the white is the lightning strikes. And this was a big, big surprise. But because the storms are so tall, even though it's way out, the radar beam is up 7 kilometers out in this 300 kilometers. But we can see, we realize eventually we can see essentially any thunderstorm that's over the lake. So this is a big plus that the radar is able to see storms over the whole lake. Land breeze. You know, I mentioned one of the things that's so important in initiating storms over the lake at night is the land breeze. And okay, the white is the lake. It's kind of magnified here. Radar is down here in Mwanza. And you see these thin lines. Well, these are the land breeze. And we were able to watch this develop day after day. Here's just 4 different days. And what's critical is that with time, the storms start to develop on these land breezes. And we're able to, by looking at aloft, to see if clouds are starting to develop or if they're not. And so you can make some very nice nowcasts of the likelihood of the storms developing. Here's a line, I've blown up some. Here's a land breeze, and you can see on this end where the storms have already initiated. Here's the squall line. Squall line has developed very rapidly. This is all in about an hour and a half, I forget what, something like that. But all of a sudden, in no time, here you can see the gust front coming out over here in this image on the right. And as it goes out, it initiates more and more storms. And so in no time at all, you have a very serious situation. Just a picture of some of the crazy things you see. Here's a thunderstorm with a circular gust front going out. And as it goes out, it will initiate other storms. So, training. We did a TMA, Tanzania Meteorological Agency. We did a lot of training. And the thing was, they were not at all used to doing warnings and nowcastings. So our task was to teach them. And you know, what it really means, what nowcasting really means, that you're saying in great detail in space and time when there's going to be a severe storm or a thunderstorm. And since they now had this very nice, high quality polarimetric radar in Mwanza, they could do these kind of things. So we taught them radar data interpretation and how to make severe storm warnings. And here's some pictures of them in action. You can see we break them up into teams. You can see different teams working here. And their idea was they were to interpret the data and then make actual forecasts. We had various spots where they're supposed to say what was going to happen in the next hour. And here we are, you can see them putting in their forecasts. And so these are some of the things that they looked at. This is a very interesting case, and there's a line of, this is radar effectively, a line of severe storms. And here's the Doppler velocity that goes with it. And the interesting thing is where you see these couplets, you know, away and towards just couplets, these are probably water spouts. And so it's likely they can even then put out warnings for where there are water spouts. And so the forecasters really learned how to do all this stuff, make these warnings. We taught them how to use extrapolation tools, and this is just one of them. How am I doing on time?
That's great. That's excellent. Are you? Is this your final slide then? Or are you?
Well, yeah. Okay. Okay. So the thing is, it's exciting is that it really can be done. You can really. We found out you could really get the forecasters up to speed on how to make these warnings, how to do nowcasting, and of course the result is they could save many lives. Now to do that, we had some recommendations, and I won't go over these recommendations, but the thing is, with the right kind of money and interest, it can all be done. And that's basically it for me. I'm just going to leave those recommendations around. Okay, Doug, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That's really, again, it's a third very inspiring presentation, and it's wonderful to see some real meteorology, of course, but also to see what can be done. And some of those cases are very beautiful, of course, and seeing these thunderstorms at 300 kilometers on the radar image is pretty remarkable too. So we've reached 3 o'clock, which is the scheduled end of this period. But in fact, what I think I'll do is we can keep the channel open maybe for 15 minutes, because there's a lot of discussion on chat, a lot of questions. I think if people have appointments to go elsewhere, which some people may have other commitments now, then of course you can leave quietly and silently, and thank you for your attention. We can just drop out or send a message and leave, and that's fine. But I think if our speakers are happy, then maybe we can just have a short discussion, because there are a lot of questions which are coming through on the chat. So let me look through these questions and pick some. So maybe in terms of logical sequence, we can come to Emma next. We've already had a question for Issa. Let me see. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at my pictures in the right sequence. Well, maybe there's questions here that for Jim. So two questions from Abdulahat Diop, who's in Anasim. So from the highway project, can we access the radar data? And were the NWC-SAF satellite nowcasting products used in highway?
Okay, now I didn't get the very first part. I heard where the satellite products used. The visible satellite is very useful for identifying some of the convergence lines sometimes. Not as good as the radar, but the problem was that most of these storms were developing at night, and the visible wasn't, of course, available at night. The other channels they're kind of useful because they just don't have the resolution, and a higher level cloud often is a problem. So we relied much more on the radar and the lightning.
Okay, thank you.
There was another part of that question I don't think I got.
Oh, it was just whether the radar data are freely available.
Oh, freely available. That's an issue. No, they are not. You have to get permission from the Tanzania Meteorological Agency to use the data. We have images in the catalog, but if you want to get to the actual digital data, you have to get permission from TMA.
Okay, thank you. Well, with partnership, maybe we can explore that. If people
yes.
Okay, well, I'm picking through, there's quite a few questions here. There's a question here from Marian Osai, who's in Ghana at KNUST. And this is to Issa Ouedraogo. With a glimpse at one of your papers, can you give a brief summary of the willingness of users to pay for the climate services? especially the farmers and fisher folks?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I've seen some question about 5, and I try to address this question with some text messages. But yeah, for the willingness to pay. Okay, when doing the evaluation of impacts, yeah, we try to understand whether the user are willing to pay to get a climate information services. And this study has been done, and a report is available, and yeah, some publication will come out. But roughly among farmers, there are at least 50% of the users who are who have a good will to pay to get access to information, because they found it very useful for increasing their resilience. And for the fishing sector, it's even higher, because you know the problem with the fishers is that every year there are in fact many people who in fact got fatalities in the sea due to some very extreme events. So in the fishing sector, there are more than 50% of the users who are willing to pay. But this depends on the cost as well. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And typically, do individuals pay, or is it larger groups or collectives who pay?
Yeah, for the business model that we have put in place, we rather go for like kind of sponsorship, like for the, in fact, the insurance companies, the agricultural insurance companies, so that it's easier to get the payment from individual farmers, because they are getting loan from the bank, the agricultural bank. So it's easier for the bank to include the cost of climate information into the premium that they're covering. It's also for the input providers, advisory providers. Yeah. To be specific, in the fishing sector, it's 65% of the fishermen who are willing to pay to get access to information. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, if I pick another question here, there's one here for Emma Wangi. What are the challenges that ForPAc face in terms of mobilizing the appropriate resources to reduce the impacts of adverse forecasts? So that's a related question. It's about the challenges of mobilizing finance, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
So this is a question for Emma now, which is
Yeah, I think just to answer that is that the project was a research project working towards a proof of concept. So showing that, yeah, it's possible to do forecast-based action within existing systems. But if I may add on to that is that within Kenya Red Cross, there is another initiative that's working towards advocating for government institutions and government systems to set aside money for anticipatory funding. And this is all the way from, so looking at the national systems, as well as going all the way, because Kenya is devolved, it's also working with sub-national systems, that's the county governments, to make sure that they are also able to have disaster risk management policies that cater for anticipatory funding. So it's yes, a conversation that's going on within Kenya Red Cross and government institutions of how can we mobilize funds for this kind of actions. But within the ForPAc project, it was just a proof of concept that this is actually possible. Yeah.
okay, thank you. I could put a couple more to Jim about nowcasting in Lake Victoria. Sorry, I'm taking these in random collection now, so we're hopping from topic to topic, but there are two related questions. Is there any effort to improve on wave forecasting over the lake by highway? And then a question for John Marsham was, do you know if TMA are issuing nowcasts currently?
Yeah, we don't think they are, but we don't know. That's one of the things. There needs to be you do all this training and stuff. But then there's no real lot of follow-up. And that needs to be done. But they certainly have the capability to do it. They're very good forecasters and nowcasters now. What was it? There was another question.
The other question was about wave forecasting.
Wave. Oh, well, we don't know how. We don't do wave forecasting. I know that once we were trying to put a program together, and there was interest in people doing it, but yeah, that's something that really could be done. Since we have the Doppler velocities, we have a good idea often of what the wind speeds are over the lake. So some wave forecasting could be done.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, I've covered quite a few of the questions. There are still some unanswered or unaddressed, but I think maybe this is the time to come to a close. I think maybe if people have questions that they would like to follow up, they could email our presenters directly. I hope you'd be okay with that, to make contact. But if that's okay with everyone, then I think maybe I'll draw this meeting to a close. I apologize for letting it go a little bit over, but I think it was particularly interesting today. And so I'll just repeat my thanks to our three speakers for three very different perspectives and all very inspiring, I think, and a great way to kick off our month of SWIFT meetings with these very inspiring visions of what you have been able to achieve. So thank you again. You won't hear applause, I'm afraid, but please hear the applause in your mind and know that it's out there. And we're very grateful for your contribution. We can all write messages of thanks in the chat, can't we? So we can all say thank you in the chat right now. Okay, so I'll bring this meeting to a close and thank you everybody for participating.